Three. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Wednesday night edition of In the Passenger Seat. Normally, you see in the driver's seat our guy, gentleman Jack, but tonight he's under the weather, so I'm in the seat. He told me to take the car around the block and don't get any scratches on it. With that being said, today we have, I'm gonna say a media darling, a key person in the Commanders media room, both by her path and both by what she's accomplished in this time. That is Miss Candi Waller. You can list out some other things that you do. I know you do Wizards content, you do some Mystics content. What else do you have in the bag?
I mean, when I first got started 8 years ago, I did all of the Washington metropolitan area sports. I did everything. I didn't leave anything on the table. But last year, well, really 2 years ago now, when my role changed at Bowie Television, I became the president. Because of that role, I was still doing Wizards. I was still doing Mystics, but couple that role and with the season the Commanders had last year, it's like I've only been covering the Commanders, to be honest with you. Others of the team will cover the Mystics and the Wizards. I'm going to try to get back with the Wizards, but here recently for the last year, for sure, the Commanders have taken up all of my time. But for sure, when I got started, even the Terps, the Hoyas, you name it, everything in the area when I first got started for a long time up until last year.
So you sound like the Raheem Devon of the sports world, where Raheem used to do every show, whether it was like he would do 2 shows, 3 shows in a day. So you just out there hustling. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
let's take it back a step. How was your day? First and foremost, I forgot to ask that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for asking. You know what? My day was pretty good. It stormed a little bit in the area, but it was all good. But I've had a calm day so far.
At least one of us did. Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, well, how was your day? I guess not as calm as mine.
Not as calm. Nice little, like I'm leaving out because I'm giving myself time to get in and get settled. Get to 495. It's just the parking lot. And then I get to 295 by RFK, and there's a car broken down in like 2 different spots. So it was fun, but we made it. We get to talk to you, get to have some fun. Yeah. Just so you know, and just so everybody else that's watching for the first time, the key of In the Passenger Seat, we want to take you on a journey through the sports world, one interview at a time, one person at a time. We feel like if we get to know the people that cover the sports or are engaged in our sports, we are just that much better, and their story gets told to people that don't get to hear their story all the time. And with that being said, let's open this up with the first question that we always ask. What is your first sports memory?
So this question, I don't know if it's still in my bio or not, because I used to keep it in there. And who knows? I don't know. I've had to update it several times. My first sports memory, honestly, is watching the George Michael Sports Machine.
That's in here.
I fell in love with the George Michael is the reason why I fell in love with storytelling about sports, because that was the only show when I was little, and that's if you are of that age and know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, go look it up on YouTube. But he was brilliant. I always felt like his delivery of sports stories made you feel like you were there. And of course, he did everything, right? From horse racing to golf to NASCAR to the rodeo, wrestling, NFL, NBA, basically, everything in 30 minutes, and told it so concise, but so in a way where it was concise, but it was detailed, if that makes sense. He just made you feel like you were there. And I would just be like, this is so cool. And I like the art of competition. So, everything from the coaches and the support systems, the families that support athletes, the athletes themselves. It is a lot to do what they do in all sports across all levels. And that has always just interested me. So you couple that with truly my first sports memory is not a game. It is watching the George Michael Sports Machine and feeling like I want to go to every single event that he's talking about. That's my story.
All right. So since you've been to a lot of events and we had to take your beat time out of this, so it has to be before then. What's like a favorite event that you witnessed, like a game that you witnessed that sticks out in your head?
Before I had the business?
Yes, before you had the business.
Super Bowl 51. So that's the event that got me to start my business when I started Seawall Sports and Entertainment. I, again, a lover of sports. And, my dad always says, you know the football is your favorite. Right. Okay. Because before I was to say everything, because I do love everything. But I guess there is a different level of energy around football. And the Mystics Championship, no, you said no beat. I was working for the Mystics Championship. Not on the beat. It was Super Bowl 51. I did that whole entire week as an NFL fan. And I was like, it was like my Disneyland. I had a ball. If you've never done Super Bowl experience, like the week, it is quite affordable. It is very fun. It's not like, it's like the Super Bowl game is like the pinnacle. It's like the end, right? But they have so many events for, individuals, families. It's fun. And there's current, active and retired players and coaches everywhere doing, autograph signings, all of those things. A lot of the NFL Network, ESPN shows are doing their live recordings and their live tapings, so you can attend those. A lot of overall activations. I had a ball. And of course, the next sporting event overall, but I think that was when I learned all that goes into Super Bowl. It's an entire week of activities. I went to the Pro Bowl too, but it was, not on the beat.
Right.
I gotta give it the Super Bowl on the fan side of things. I had a blast. Not that I don't have fun on the media side, but that's work. That's probably what sticks out in my mind. And maybe a few others if I had to sit and really think about it. But that's the one that pops up. For sure.
And then you started to answer it, so let's go ahead and ask it. What's the one since you've been on the beat, since you've been working the last 8 years? What's the experience of the event
that was the most fun?
Yes.
The Washington Commanders last year. I think the Detroit divisional round game is the most fun I've had since I've been on the beat. And that's crazy, right? Because yes, I've covered the Mystics Championship on site. Let's not forget, truthfully, I should have answered this and said this because now I'm starting to think. I wasn't on the beat because I was in media, but not on the Caps beat when they won the Stanley Cup. I was absolutely enjoying that as a fan.
Okay.
Downtown DC all night long, literally. The night they won the cup, I got home at like 6:30 in the morning. So
you weren't doing cake stands in the waterfalls of Georgetown, were you?
I wasn't doing that. That wasn't my bag. But the night they won, I was definitely down there on 7th Street doing everything.
There we go. Good stuff.
Hanging on to the fire trucks and everything. Like that was a good time. That was a great time. It was much more quiet, I felt like, on that end of town when the Nats won, because I was downtown yet again. But yeah, I have to give it to the night the Caps won off the beat. That was the loads of fun. But being on the beat, It was probably some others, like I said, the Mystics Championship and all that, but that divisional round game in Detroit, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm working, so it's almost like, are you having fun? And I am, but that was one where I actually gave myself a few moments to have some fun. And I probably shouldn't have, but you know.
as a show, we also believe in like flowers and the people along your journey. So I would ask you, along this journey of becoming what you've become, who are the influencers? I know you said George Michael Sports Machine, but are there any other influences along that path?
I mean, well, like outside of the sports world, my parents, right? My parents and my brother. I mean, I don't have I was thinking about this the other day. It's interesting you asked me this question because I have the kind of parents and the immediate family that dared me to dream. They wanted me to dream, but they wanted me to dream with accountability, right?
Okay.
So it was like, work, God first. We are a God first family for sure. Do the right thing, operating with integrity, treating people right. Just that's all day, every day. That's how we are with one another. That is what we do, right? But they wanted me to dream, whatever it is I wanted to do, they were going to support that, but with accountability, meaning, I'm not just gonna pay. I be out here paying for everything. It's within reason. Work hard, you'll get the return. Right? It's like the reaping what you sow. You work hard. You put out this. It'll bear fruit. You keep watering. You keep working, and they have been huge every single day in this journey. A lot of times I've wanted to quit. Or say this isn't really worth it, or this path I don't see it, because I can tend to be a person that doesn't trust the next step. I need to understand what's going to come out of the next step before I take it, and they have been huge along this path for sure. And then from like a sports perspective, it's a lot of folks that's on the Commanders beat, Lake Lewis, Donna Hopkins, Lou Holder, who when I came into especially the Commanders media room, were very good to me, very kind to me in accepting, just, reeling me in. And it's hard to, turn, ignore the person who's asking all the questions to you, as well as keep showing up to each and every daggone thing. So just off the top of my head, those are a few, folks that I would mention. I'm sure the list goes on and on. People have moments, pockets of moments that you're like, what, that was a dope moment. But in terms of the consistency, just where I am right now, those are the folks that come to mind immediately.
All right, then let's hop back on. You said Super Bowl 51 is kind of the reason you started your business. So tell me, what is Seawall's Sports?
Seawall Sports and Entertainment. So Seawall Sports and Entertainment started out as a media outlet covering all things DC sports. It was for authentic Washington metropolitan area sports fans. I didn't see enough of myself telling sports stories. I didn't see enough of myself being active contributors to conversations. At that time, I would see, women were in sports, but it was, of course, the amazing sideline reporters. It would be snippets here, snippets there. If you saw women at that time for an extended period of time, it was almost as facilitators of the conversation, not active contributors to the conversation. And so I mean, of course, that's increasing now, right? We're seeing all female broadcasts. We're seeing more of women shows. We're seeing a lot of this all of the time now, and I wanted to see myself in Washington sports as someone who is knowledgeable and knows what they are watching, right? As soon as a few things, as soon as somebody doesn't agree, as soon as the first thing they say is, you a woman, you didn't play this, that, and the third. You can go ahead and check my resume and pay attention, and you will understand that I do know what I'm talking about. And so it's just that level of confidence that I didn't see, right? And not in a confrontational way, not in a combative way. It's just in a way of, the men can go out here and say and speak, and everyone just listens. we need to be able to do the same. And so that's why I started it. I didn't see myself in the movie. I wanted to be in the movie. And it really started from there. I had that much fun when I was on the set of First Take and Undisputed and Good Morning Football. And while I was on the set of Good Morning Football, and there was a couple different aspects of it. I loved the way that they do the show, but then I understood like back part of the production and then the fan engagement, all of that I was like, you know what? If I could do anything for the rest of my life, it would be this. So,
wow.
Here I am.
All right. So this question comes from the Rooster himself. He said, if there, can you describe or talk about some of the challenges when you first got on the beat for the Commanders? What did you run into? What were your challenges at that point in time?
When I got on to the Commanders, but you said this question was from who?
Chris Russell.
He asked it. Tell him I say hi. But
I will. No, he's in my we text on the side. So I told him I was interviewing today. Yeah. So he sent me a question.
Oh, perfect. Sam Rousset said hello. So that is an interesting question. Some of the challenges I experienced was really around questioning my credibility. Right. I mean, I came in from my path isn't a traditional one, right? I did not go to journalism school. I have 3 degrees, but I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't work and still don't work for an outlet that people may know, exactly what it is, right? You didn't know, people don't know Seawall Sports and Entertainment. They don't necessarily know Bowie TV. And so it came along with the question of my credibility. That was hard to stomach, and but I kept showing up because work ethic is part of any job in what you do. And so for that, it just felt like in the industry overall, it was like you were isolated because every place has an in crowd, so to speak, and I just wasn't a part of that because I had come in, from another industry. I spent years and years in the consulting industry in corporate America, and I bring in all my corporate expertise, my educational background, and just who I am and what I know how to do. And so sometimes being coming from an independent outlet, you're immediately written off, and I understand why. And so that was hard. And with the Commanders beat, I mean, the team wasn't good. That was the other part of it, right? You have to remain objective. But I remember telling someone, I said, do you remember, like, if you ever believed in like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or anything like that, like the moment you found out it wasn't real, you're like, dang, like, I've been lying. And so that's kind of what it was. I started covering the team in 2017 on Satellite in 2018, and it was not a nice place, the organization.
Right, of course.
Some nice people throughout, and I've met some nice people throughout, right? But it was hard to, and not that I would ever sugarcoat anything, right? But it was hard to stay out of the fray.
Right.
And that was just something that I was determined not to do. I was determined not to get in the fray. I didn't ever want to become the TMZ of the DMV in sports. Like I didn't ever want to do that. I wanted to stick to the game and practice and just building relationships and doing all those things. And that was hard to do when there was so much mess going on all the time. Couple that with the fact that the product was not good.
Right.
The game was not good at all. Just not, caliber of watching a lot of times. So it was hard. Those were probably the bigger things, right? Understanding it was a sacrifice. That was the other thing too. I mean, I don't think people realize how much time those of us on the daily beat spend.
Right. Exactly.
It is a sacrifice. I mean, and not compared to what these people are sacrificing, right? Being away from their families. But it is indeed a sacrifice. It is a lot, and it is a job, and you got to show up every day to stay relevant.
Couldn't say it better. Real quick from our comments, our boss man BJ says, "Welcome to the show."
Hello, thank you.
And then Samar, one of our, if we were a radio station, he'd be like a P1. He says, "Hey, Ryder and Candy, this is the best guest interview I've ever seen. Inspiring. We need Seawall t-shirts made ASAP, superhero level. I'm a new fan."
I used to have Seawall Sports and Entertainment shirts, so don't give me any ideas. Okay, I'll call my t-shirt person and say, "Hey, put them back online."
Hey, Sam will be the first one there to buy them. If you see a little mothership, this is his calling card for every show of ours.
I love it. That's awesome. Very awesome. Indeed. Very cool.
So, you were talking about the journey on the beat and everything. How was it getting credentials early on? Because you were Seawall Sports and Entertainment, not ABC, not NBC. How did that play out?
You know, so I did actually get credentialed, but it was hard, right? I mean, I got declined. I mean, I got denied a lot. And the PR director at the time gave me a shot. And, you know, he did his due diligence on me, right? He did his due diligence for sure on me to make sure he's checking my background, checking me out, making sure this isn't, you know,
right.
Fan, podcast, blogger, because you do have to, there are levels, there are media policies that you must follow, the NFL and the team. So I understood that. And he gave me a shot. So I would get credentialed under Seawall Sports and Entertainment. Now, of course, things shifted with the media policy right around during the pandemic. And then I ended up joining Bowie TV.
Okay.
On, a traditional form of media. And I was able to start getting credentialed to Bowie TV, but that was still an education point, right? Of what is Bowie TV? Where is it? Where can I find it? Who's this? Who's that? All of those things. And we've grown so much because, of course, with me being the president, I'm also on the beat of the Commanders, but we also have a presence with the Baltimore Ravens as well. And so independent outlets in this space, now it was much easier to get credentialed under independent outlet is, Mystics, sometimes Wizards, right? But it all comes down to work ethic. You got to show up. You got to be present, right? But it was difficult. I mean, I got denied plenty of times, a lot, a whole lot. And you just can't be afraid of a no, a repeated no. You just can't. I mean, it is what it is. And it'll come to fruition if need be, but you definitely have to, learn some things and keep plugging away based on what you learn, and you keep moving forward.
Okay. Before we transition to the Commanders completely, can you tell people about Bowie TV real quick and where they can find it so that way we can get that in?
Absolutely. So currently Bowie TV, and I'm saying currently for a reason. I'll explain that in a moment. If you're in Prince George's County, mostly Bowie, but throughout Bowie, Maryland, but mostly throughout the county, you can find it on Verizon Channel 11 right now, on Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. We are transitioning to another channel. Okay. So, make sure you're following me. If you're not already on X, or follow Bowie TV on Facebook or Bowie TV Sports on X or IG, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Bowie TV on YouTube. Definitely subscribe there. Tons of content. It's not just sports. It's tons of community content and talk shows and things about wellness and health, and youth sports is up there. So, we'll be sharing more about that soon, but right now the content is on Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. We're moving through some different, changes because that happens, and we'll be just on a different channel, but still, Bowie TV.
Like we always do. We always extend the olive branch that if you need to post something, you need to announce something. Our Sideline Junkies podcast page is available, and you can always just drop something in there and just go from there.
Oh, I appreciate that. I will let everybody know. I will make sure that's on my list of things to do once the move is official.
Okay. Just have them add us, or we'll add them on Facebook and we'll go for there.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Let's get you out real quick before we get you out of here. Let's get some Commanders talk.
Okay.
What's the one I want to do?
And I can give you 5 more minutes after. I think it's
okay.
Thursday. Yeah, I just checked.
All right. So we have Marshawn Lattimore. You have Brian Robinson. You have a couple other people. Who's the person that you think needs to step up this year for the Commanders to be successful?
I mean, I think the players that you just named, I think, are going to do what they do. We're going to see a healthy, hopefully, right? Hopefully, because that's the name. That's the whole thing about it, right? The best of ability is availability, and these are 2 folks that you named that had some, injuries last year, so they can stay healthy. That's a great thing for the Washington Commanders with those 2 players. But in terms of who needs to step up, I think it's time to see what the rookies from last year, their year 2. Let's see what they do. We know what some of them can do, right? We know what some of them can do. We know Jaden Daniels, we see Mike Samuel, Brandon Coleman, but let's see a bit more. We know Jordan McGee was dealing with some injuries last year. So we want to see what he can do. We want to see if Ben Sinnott can get active. Can Luke McCaffrey take that next step? We want to definitely see Johnny Newton, right? With Jonathan Allen gone, we got to see what Johnny does. And Jean-Baptiste, he's an edge rusher. He's a defensive end. Everybody's saying, we needed, they need this. They drafted one.
Yep.
Right. So now it becomes, what are they going to do in year 2? That's who I'm looking at, right? Because so much of what I've heard the fan base say and share in terms of what's needed, I'm like, well, they drafted that last year, everybody. So that needs to be brought up to everybody's memory, right? I do a segment on my show called Use Your Clues. And so I'm like, you use your clues in that they drafted those positions. Let's see what happens this year. That's who I'm looking at. Those guys, everybody I just named, to say, what are they going to do this year? Of course, coupled with the free agents that they brought in, but I really want to see what the rest of that draft class, because so much of the draft class can be centered around Jaden.
Right.
Then Mikey, then Brandon Coleman. But we shouldn't even do it like that, because they had great seasons. And Brandon Coleman at that left tackle position, he had some tough matchups, and I think he did amazing last year, right, as a rookie. So let's see what happens with the rest of the draft class this year. That's what I'm looking at.
I think Luke McCaffrey has to have the hard luck rookie season of all hard luck rookie seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him tackled at the 1-yard line at least 5 times last year. So
it was some great plays. It was some great plays that was set up, for him, and great, some opportunities that would have been like, oh, Luke was right there.
Cincinnati
for sure
goes out the end zone. Out the side. Tampa, he catches a slant, gets tackled at the 1. So
yeah.
Next question is, what do you see next for Jaden? Like, what do you think his next step is?
I mean, I don't even know. I think Jaden just continuing. I think he just needs to show consistency, right? At this point. And that's like with any great player. You just keep being great. That's all. It like make it sound like it's so small, but it really is. When you think about great players make plays all the time, or they just find ways to win. They find ways to be impressive all the time, right? You look at the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes, the players over that are still in the league, and over time, you're just like, every game is a good game, even if they didn't have a good game. Does that make sense, right? So you look at, remember, I'm going to use going back to Patrick Mahomes as an example. I remember at the beginning of the season, and I kept saying it to everybody, is anybody know that they still undefeated? Because they were undefeated for so long, and it was, Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. He did this, he did that. And I'm like, but they still winning somehow. Okay, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying necessarily that Jaden has to be perfect, is what I'm saying, right?
Okay.
But if he puts the team, they're going to rely on the quarterback. That just is what it is. Everybody, every team. Staying healthy, right? And that's with every player. But just continue to be great. I mean, he is who he is. It's not a gimmick at all. So continue to be great. just continue to be all the things that he is and staying grounded, right? And that's with any of these guys, right? But for me, it's like the next step is just keep doing what you are doing, and that is staying in the film room, staying in your book, just keep doing what you love to do and keep that competitive nature going and wanting to win, because everybody is following suit.
All right. And then I think this is going to be a little bit of an answer for you. So you and Dan seem to have a real nice relationship. Can you compare that to the ones you had before? What's the difference?
Dan who?
Quinn.
Let me stop. You could have talked about the owner. Let me stop the old owner. I'm joking. That was a joke. Because I do like the joke, if y'all didn't know. But yes, we do for sure. Very personable. I mean, he got number one rated the top coach in the league last year. The year before that, I think he was in top 5. It's a reason for that. Okay, it's the reason why so many free agents last year signed with the Washington Commanders, and they did not know who the quarterback was going to be. Remember, we've always heard the people want to come somewhere when they know who the quarterback is going to be. They need to know the quarterback. Use your clues, everybody. The quarterback was not determined at that time when all of those free agents signed. So he makes an impact, and he does that with all of us in the media. He treats us just like he treats his staff, everybody he works with. He's the same with everybody, and so that's fantastic. I had a great relationship with Ron Rivera. Coach Rivera was very kind to me, very kind. The Bowie TV. It wasn't a difference in how the media outlet was treated.
Okay.
Right. He not at all a difference. So I started to feel that with Coach Rivera. I didn't know Coach Gruden very well. He was there not that long once I was on the beat. Honestly, we talked a few times, but nothing like that. But Coach Rivera, absolutely, and many coaches on his staff, and Coach Quinn is just who he is with everybody. So I'm glad that the Commanders have him.
Okay. And then real quick to wrap this up before and get you out on time. What's the record?
Everybody asks me that, so I answer it, but I'm like, look, everybody. Now I feel like I sound like Josh Harris, because sometimes he's like, look, but in my mind, you got to wait until the rosters are set.
Okay.
Right. It's just like I tell people when you do draft grades, and this is free game from Seawall. Make sure y'all follow me. Seriously, this is free game from Seawall. You can't really rate. You can rate it. You can rate. This is no poo-poo in the draft grades, mock drafts, or anything. But you can't really grade it until after the season is over. You got to see. You give it an initial thought, right? Initial grade, initial whichever you like to do, right? But then you got to check again, in my opinion, once the roster is set. The roster is not set right now. So the roster's got to be set. I will do predictions, though, once the roster is set. I will do that. But even when you kind of look into that piece of it, it kind of goes into wait until the season is over to do your full evaluation. How did it go?
Right. Because during the season, there's turns.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I have to wait. I'm a person who I come from a background with data collection of various methods of data collection is how you form a hypothesis. And I need active rosters for all the teams they have to play. So I get down into that nitty gritty, just so y'all know, free game from Seawall. I hope y'all, keep in touch. So I do that. I need to see everybody's roster set. Okay. I need to see the 53. And from there, I kind of make decisions. I mean, I'll tell you, I said it on ABC 7 because they asked, and I mean, it was in the moment, so I didn't go through all that. But I said, I said 10, right? Okay. I'm like, 12 was a lot. I was wrong last year. So I only got 7 last year to end up winning 12. Is what it is. I said 10 this year. But here's something I do want to say from using my own clues and just paying attention to what happened last year. In this division, I think if you want to firmly stamp, I'm not saying they win this many, But I'm like, well, the Eagles won 14 games last year, so I guess you got to try to win 14.
Okay. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is In the Passenger Seat. This is Candi Waller. I'm gonna let you out on that. I want to thank you for jumping in with me. Thank you for even giving me the extra 5 minutes. I truly appreciate it. We'll connect because I got your information and keep you in the loop. Anything you want to say before you get out?
No, thank you so much for having me. This was a good time, so I appreciate it. And just let me know the season is soon amongst us and here. So just let me know, and I'll be happy to come back.
All right, cool. Thank you. We appreciate that. Well, with that being said, I'm the Midnight Rider, aka Ben Conti. That's Candi Waller. This is In the Passenger Seat. Thank you for coming out. Have a great night. Enjoy your evening, folks.